What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to Blazers Upres Live. We got a fun stream to talk about because we finally have some news on the potential of what next season could actually be. We'll go into that. I'll get Eric's opinions and I'll give my thoughts on it. And then we'll take your questions. That's about all we got planned for the stream. It's just nice to have some actual NBA news that's worth talking about. So that's what we're going to get into on the stream. What's going on, chat? Shout out if you're watching this after the fact. If you're not watching this live, I like that, people do enjoy coming back and watching this after the fact. If you're in here live, though, we'll take your questions at the end, and thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I think we should just dive straight in. So the NBA has been in talks with the Players Association about next season, and the two key things that have been reported from this is that they want to start before January. They want to start at the end of December, and they want to get the season finished before the Olympics, which makes sense. And then B, in order to get that done, they're talking about a potential 72-game season instead of an 82-game season. So we don't have all the details on that, but it was also reported today that they're talking about starting training camp December 1st, which would only be 12 days after the draft. And when is free agency supposed to start? Have they reported that yet?
It was originally supposed to be December 1st, so it wouldn't happen then. It would have to happen right around the draft if that was the case.
Yeah, so you might be looking at free agency starting the 20th, like immediately after the draft, which is crazy in itself, but training camp starting only 10, 11 days after free agency starts would be wild. You're basically signing with a team and then moving there immediately. It's almost like they need to start free agency before the draft. Just the schedule is so condensed in terms of the offseason. So there's two different parts of this. It's, okay, what is this offseason going to look like? And then it's, what is the season going to look like? It's going to be completely different than anything we're used to, Obviously, that's the way the bubble was, but this is going to be very interesting.
But there's also, only like a little over 3 weeks till the draft?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they could start free agency that soon either. That's crazy.
Think about this, dude. If because the rumored start date is the 22nd, yeah. Right? So you might have preseason. I don't know if they'll play preseason games or if they'll just do a training camp, but if they play preseason games, that might start, December 8th or something? December 8th is only a month and a half away. We could be talking about 2020, 2021 Blazers basketball in a month and a half. We might be doing post-game streams again, which is crazy because it feels like we just stopped doing post-game streams. Right. It's just such a quick turnaround. Yeah, I'm cool with it. I like this because I said, and I've said this on previous streams, I think you can't really go into August. For whatever reason, people don't watch TV as much in August. And I think there was a study that came out about why viewership was down. It was a combination of a bunch of different things, the pandemic, the people, not really caring that much due to the season being so weird and whatnot. It was also reported that people didn't really care to watch sports in August for whatever reason, and I kind of theorized that in the past, and there was a study that confirmed, at least with some people, they didn't really want to watch sports in August, at least not basketball. So I think finishing before this season structure that they're proposing is still 72 out of 82 games. So I'm happy with that. It's not a 50-game season or whatnot. It's still a pretty much full season.
That's different than cutting the season short because you can actually plan for the schedule to be even doing it 72 games. But we had an issue with them just cutting off the season short because there had been an uneven schedule for teams that had an easier schedule the rest of the way. But now you can just cut off like a division game or something so all the teams are in the same boat.
Yeah, so that's still like 7/8 of a normal season, so I'll take that. You're talking about finals like at the start of July, I'm assuming, because the Olympics start the 23rd and they want to get the season out. because they want to be able to allow NBA players to play in the Olympics. The Olympics being next year, I feel like kind of forced them to condense it a little bit. I feel like if there was an Olympics, they'd run it a little bit later and maybe try an 82-game season. But the Olympics is big for like growth of the game. So, and the NBA has prioritized that in terms of their work overseas, basketball without borders, whatnot. So they care about that. So I think that's part of the reason they're starting so early, and part of the reason they're talking about cutting it to 72 games. But I mean, like 72 games, I want 82 games, just I want as much as possible. But you might see like each game might mean a little bit more, slightly more, just because it's a little bit more condensed. You just have less games, so it might mean a little bit more. And I like that this sets up for them to like go back to normal in 2021, late 2021, and start that season in October, because you'd end the season in July and start back up in October, which would be a quicker turnaround than we're used to anyways. So we're talking about quick off seasons this off season and probably next off season. But overall, I support this idea. I like them starting in December. I think it's better that they're playing basketball in December and January than in August. And I like that they're allowing the players a chance to go play in the Olympics. I want to see Dame play there. So overall, like, this news has me excited. I'm down for a quick turnaround, a quick off season. I'm down for it to be hectic and crazy and just see what this looks like, and it'll be entertaining. And honestly, I have really no issue with anything that is being rumored right now.
Hi, Mom. But yeah, to your point, I think you and I are both on board with the season kind of remaining the same calendar going forward and not switching it to a later start date in future seasons, right? Mm-hmm. Like you still want it to start in October, right?
Yes.
Moving forward. So I think this is a good sign that they're probably not going to move it to December going forward in future years. So that's a good sign. So I initially heard that all the players were pushing for them to start too, because they want to have a summer next summer, because they didn't really have a summer this summer. And Dame reiterated that in responding to a Twitter post. So I thought that was what was going to be the majority, but then Danny Green went on a podcast today and said that LeBron won't even show up for the first month of the season if they start in December, and he's mad or whatever. So now I'm wondering, like, if there's some like disconnection there, because you think LeBron would want the summer too. Like, I know for him in particular, he was on the team that made it the furthest, but I mean, all these teams had 4.5 months off. The 22 teams that were in the bubble before it happened. It wasn't like they played for 9 months and then have to play a month later. They had also talking about rest.
Yeah, you're also talking about 8 teams that stopped playing in mid-March, so you're talking about 9 months of rest for those teams. Yeah, so that's more than what? Like almost half the league will have either 4.5 months off or 9 months off. You know what I mean? Like the teams that lost in the first round will have 4 months off. Blazers finish their season late August and they'd start back up in late December. That's 4 months off. So that's like another 8 teams. You know what I mean? So that's what? Let me do the math. 22 out of the 30 teams will have at least a 4-month or so layoff or longer. You know what I mean? So the only teams that it kind of hurts is like Miami. But like Miami's young and they'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like in the Lakers, because they only get a 2-month layoff. But you're also talking about a shorter season that they're going into. They had like 4 months off before the bubble. And it's not like the Lakers took the play-in games all that seriously anyways. So that's the thing. Like, I don't think it's unfair, If LeBron wants to forfeit his paycheck and all that, then more power to him or whatever. The NBA probably won't like it because they'll probably have some marquee games with the Lakers on TV. But you know what? If LeBron's going to take a month off, just don't put the Lakers on primetime TV the first month, except for maybe their first game where they raise the banner or whatnot. But after that, showcase some other teams. I'm fine with that. I think they should be doing more of that, showcasing other teams. So that's a chance for them, if they could maybe plan around that if LeBron actually says,
The problem is LeBron's got the pull with the Players Association, right? So
how much pull does he have, though, do you think?
Well, I mean, Chris Paul's still the head of it, right? He's his best friend or one of his best friends.
Yeah, but wasn't LeBron one of the only people that like wanted to like quit the season, and the rest of the players were against that, and they ended up resuming?
I don't know. They kind of some people said that wasn't reported right. I don't know. Um, but I could see some blowback from him causing a delay in the season. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen because
Eh.
I'm like you. I hope it's like that. But
I mean, what does he suggest instead? A shorter season where they get less pay and the league makes less money. You know what I mean? Like LeBron could probably take that hit, but there's a lot of players out there that won't want to take
yeah,
that hit. You know what I mean? Like, what does LeBron suggest then? Start in February so he can get more rest, and then what? Make it so that NBA players can't go play in the Olympics, and that's the thing though. The longer this offseason is for him, the shorter the next offseason will be.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Or the league is going to have to condense its schedule so much that he's going to lose serious money. So it's like he's going to have to sacrifice somewhere. Sacrificing this offseason, only having a 2-month layoff instead of what, like a normal 4-month layoff. Especially, and it's not like he's coming off an 82 game season and playoffs where he didn't get a break at all. He had a 4-month break between March and July, and then played from July to October. So you're talking about in the course of let me do the math. In the course of 9 months, he played 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like that's he'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing is that's he's gonna have to sacrifice somewhere. I think honestly I think he will end up sacrificing there because he won't want to sacrifice money, and then he can have the layoff next season. And he if he wants to, he can go play in the Olympics. So
I agree with you. It just surprised me to hear those comments
yeah.
because, like I said earlier in the day, it felt like all the players were like, "Yeah, we get a summer in 2021. All right." I mean, we don't know if COVID will be over or not. Hopefully, it is. But yeah, I don't see any reason. I mean, a little bit of it feels a little rushed, but everyone's in the same boat other than the Lakers and the Heat. So, yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal.
I mean, he can take a year off if he wants to, as far as I'm concerned. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's really that tough on him, go take a year. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I feel like LeBron's just kind of short sighted. You know, oh, I ain't playing any games without fans. He was saying that in March. You know, like just completely bristled at the idea of games without fans, and he won a championship in a bubble without fans. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like he'll come around to it where he'll be fine with that. But he is one of those guys that's like super particular with like his offseason regimen and the things he does for his body and whatnot. But it's just like, you know what? Times get tough. You got to adapt. And if anybody can adapt, I would assume it's LeBron. Like, you'll be fine. You know, I don't know. So I hope that doesn't become an issue, because I don't want to hear about like LeBron versus the rest of the players, and are they going to postpone the season just because LeBron wants to, and just like it would basically just be the NBA revolving around LeBron. I don't want that to become the case. You know, I hope it just he accepts it, because it's honestly the best thing that the NBA can do is start in December. You get Christmas Day games. You lose potentially fans in the stands for some games, but like that shouldn't really be their expectation next season anyway. So yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, like there's a definite chance you could have fans in the stands in the playoffs. I mean, in June, July. I'm not really gonna get too deep into it, but it's like, you know, you're gonna have games without fans next year. But it's not like the whole season will go without fans, so hopefully they can recoup some of that money. It's just a very tough situation. You just got to be flexible. You got to adapt as a league, as players, and that's what the NBA has done well. I feel like is they've adapted and they've been flexible, and now you have a super short off season, but it's just the way it has to go, I think.
I don't know if you saw a post by Spencer Dinwiddie talking about money, but he kind of figured out that the players forego like $1.4 billion in contracts, and the NBA is saying that they lost $1.5 billion in revenue. So he was like, well, we took the loss, not you. Basically, he said he didn't know if the math checked out, but um, maybe it was kind of understated how much money the actual owners lost. But I also
Yeah.
heard that the owners are pushing for the luxury tax and the hard cap to remain at the projected level, not go down to whatever the cap is decided upon,
Hmm.
which leads me to believe that these organizations aren't worried about money as much as it was feared to be. I mean, I don't. It's probably not every organization. It's probably just the good teams that are in
Yeah.
financial situations to not really care about
Uh-huh.
salaries and stuff. But
That's great news if you're a Blazer fan too, if that ends up being the case.
yep,
Because
it's also great news for like the Warriors and the
yeah,
Lakers and some
yeah,
of
but
those other
I
teams.
feel like the Warriors would be more willing to pay the tax next season than the Blazers would be.
Right.
So like we've never really with Paul Allen we never really had to discuss like paying the tax and finances and whatnot, but that was a serious that still is a serious talking point going into this offseason. The more room we have under the luxury tax, the more room we have to maybe use the mid-level exception and use the traded player exception or whatnot. So we potentially have more options available that wouldn't be limited due to the luxury tax is lower and the teams are losing money, so we can't afford to spend seven use the traded player exception to bring in somebody worth $7 million, which is going to end up costing us $11 million or whatever with the luxury tax. So yeah, I mean that's good news if you're a Blazer fan because I want them to to make moves this offseason. I want them to use that trade player exception. I want them to use their full mid level exception. So uh, hopefully it remains at that level. And that's what I was speculating before. It doesn't make sense to like punish teams because that's the thing. It's like to curb team spending, but when teams are already losing money, that curbs their spending in general. You don't want to punish them more by lowering what was the projected luxury tax just because the cap isn't as high. You know what I mean?
Well, one GM was quoted as saying, "Thank God I don't have cap space this year because I would hate to like be able to spend money this summer." So it's almost like some of those rules are meant to save them from themselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But Trevin asked, would a shortened season lower the salary owed to the players? That would have to be worked out with whatever agreement they reached. My guess is 72 games would be enough to qualify for players to get full salary. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I
it's
feel
just my
like it
guess.
also depends on like when they could potentially bring back partial s- stadiums.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like the thing is, if in the best case scenario you could have potentially packed stadiums in June and July in the US. In the best case scenario in regards to this, if everybody's able to get vaccinated and it works, obviously there's a million question marks with that I'm not going to get into, but best case scenario says that by June, July for the finals, the whole entire US is vaccinated with a vaccine that works. And in that case, you would have some semblance of being able to return to normal and have packed stadiums and whatnot. So, like, obviously, that's a huge money maker for the NBA is playoff ticket revenue. Because if you guys have looked at Blazers playoff tickets, they're like $100 for the cheapest seats. They're expensive. The NBA makes so much money off that type of stuff. So if they're able to profit off that, then they're not going to lose as much money. So it might even be something where it's like they have to put something in place that's flexible, dependent on league revenue this year. So, because I mean that's a question mark. Ticket revenue is a question mark, and if they're able to profit off some ticket revenue, it's gonna eliminate the losses more so than if they have empty stadiums all season. So it's definitely a complicated situation in terms of what players might get paid and the finances and how much of their salary they might not be able to get.
Yeah, I just am fascinated by all this. I'm such a nerd. Like, I'm like, just announce when the cap number, what the cap number is going to be, so I can figure stuff out. Um, but yeah, for those that missed it, the projected salary cap for next year was supposed to be 115 million, and which would make the luxury tax line 139 million, giving the Blazers a lot of flexibility to play with contracts, re-sign a Whiteside or a Melo maybe, and use the mid-level exception and possibly stay under that luxury tax team. So you could better the team and stay under the tax line if the numbers stay similar to next year. But if that number goes down, it's going to kind of limit how much they can do. They probably have to choose between re-signing a Whiteside and using the mid-level exception, and then they're not as deep because they don't get to use all their avenues to improve the team. Probably wouldn't be able to use the trade exception then. So I'm hoping it's that 139 number, because that gives us enough room to use definitely 2 out of the 3 between re-signing Whiteside, the mid-level exception, and the trade exception.
And we really only need to use 2 of the 3 because we really only have 2 legitimate rotation spots open, which is 2 bigs, right? Because we could potentially... Right now, we potentially have our starting center, our backup center, if they make Zach Collins the backup center, if we got like a starting 4 or whatever, right? So we could go out and get 2 4s, or we could go out and get 1 4 and keep Zach Collins as another 4 and get a backup center behind Nurkic to replace Whiteside. So either way, 2 front court spots, either 2 power forwards or a power forward in the center is what we need. If we use the mid-level exception, the trade player exception, you gotta assume they're filling both those spots. And we wouldn't have, we wouldn't need Whiteside back. Or if we resign Whiteside, we have our backup center, we really only need to get a 4. So we would only need to use one of those. So that's the thing, is if that luxury tax is what it was projected to be, whatever amount that was, if we have enough room, then we should be able to stay out of the luxury tax and fill those 2 rotation spots, whether it's re-signing Melo, re-signing Whiteside, or going out and bring 2 guys in that weren't on our team last year with the mid-level exception and the MLE, because after that, you're just filling out the roster for cheap guys. You got Anthony Simons as a 10th guy. You got, I want him to bring back Wenyen Gabriel on a minimum contract. I want... we'll have Nas on a decent rookie contract. So that's the thing. Is like everything else, filling it out would be cheap. We should have enough room to be able to stay out of the luxury tax.
If Hood and Hazonia opt in, we have 10 players under contract. If you add in our first-round pick, that's 11. Mm-hmm. So we only have, at the most, 4 spots, and we know Olshey sometimes likes to only have 14. I don't know. You
didn't count Nas, did you? You got to count Nas in there.
Uh-huh.
Nas.
That's kind of Nas.
Is it? Oh, yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah.
He's under the 10 under contract.
Got you. Yeah. Sorry.
So that leaves 3 or 4 spots with Gabriel. If we keep our second-round pick, we don't know if we're going to be able to sign Horde to a 2-way or if we want to keep him or not. And then, the MLE, and that doesn't include Whiteside or Melo. So kind of got to decide what we're going to do with those.
Do you know what our salary amount is with those 10 players under contract, and if Hood and Hazonia opt in?
With Ariza, it's like right around $113 million off the top of my head.
Yeah, so the projected...
Not including our draft pick, which is going to be about $3 million. So it'll be about $116 million with those 11 players. So we have about $23 million to work with.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. It might be off by a couple.
Yeah, $23 million to work with under the luxury tax. Mid-level exception is going to be $9.5 million. Trade player exception is $7 million. So that's only $16 million. And then we'd have fill out the roster with another $6 million or so, whatever, roughly.
For the record, that's not cap space. That's just room we have between. And that's why I keep bringing up Whiteside as an option, because I'm not saying that Whiteside is the best option, but re-signing him gives us an avenue to still use those other 2 exceptions on other players. Whereas if we don't re-sign him, we have to use those other 2 options just to fill out the roster. Basically.
I just don't see if we resign Whiteside, we only have 1 rotation spot left to fill with those 2 things. I don't even see why we'd even need to use both. I would prefer to save the traded player exception. Maybe you can use it right before the trade deadline, because that's when we got it, and it expires after a year. That's going to be different with a different schedule, so I don't know exactly when, but we could potentially use that in season. But it's just we should be able to stay out of the luxury tax and do whatever we want this offseason,
I hate Joel. I used to like you, Joel.
Full mid-level exception on Bello and make him the starting small forward. Yeah, no thanks. And
then trade Nurkic.
Yeah, he's trying to trigger you. But honestly, if they keep that luxury tax level the same, I don't think we really need to worry about like spending too much roster wise, assuming that we just want to stay out of the luxury tax. We should have enough room to be able to pretty much do anything realistic, you know. I mean, of course we could go and trade CJ for a guy making $6 million more, and we could go and trade Ariza for a guy making $4 million more or whatever, and then, you know, we might not have enough room to use our mid-level exception and our TPE and stay under the tax, but like we're likely not going to trade CJ. We're likely going to keep Ariza. So in terms of just analyzing this offseason, might make things easier on us, not having to prioritize that aspect of it as much.
I wonder if the offseason obviously is going to be really short between free agency and training camp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Whiteside doesn't get any interest, or at least like respectable in his mind, I wonder if he just signs a 1-year deal with us, hoping that we re-sign him for more the next season because we'd still retain his bird rights.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chance he could come
him for like a few $1 million.
Yeah, there's a chance he could be cheaper than people realize. He could be $4 or $5 million for that price. I'm okay with him as the backup center. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe he'll play hard because he wants to get that money back. You know, so he can get another good contract. You know, or maybe he'll just accept a backup role. I don't know. Like, I have some question marks with him as a backup, but honestly, the way this offseason is shaping up, we're actually in a very decent position, I think. It just comes down to, I think that we can get a better backup 4 and a better backup 5 than Melo and Whiteside. So if it's something where we're just completely stagnant, just bring those two guys back, I won't be happy. Unless, you know, maybe I'll be happy if, like, oh, I don't know, Obi Toppin falls to 16 or something. You know what I mean? Obviously, like, anything can happen or whatever. But, like, I think we can get a better 4 than Melo. Melo has become so overrated by this fan base, it's crazy. And, like, more people disagree with me than agree with me. But I think we can get a better 4 that not only, like, is maybe a little better player, but fits what we need, all right? Because to contend, I'm going to go in on this. To contend, what do we need to do? We need to move the ball more, isolate less. We need to play better defense. Melo doesn't help with those things. We also maybe need to score a little bit more efficiently. Melo is not an efficient scorer. So it's like, okay, he's not going to help us get to the style of play that we need to play, compared to like maybe a 3-and-D forward that takes the right shots, that can also hit threes like Melo, but won't force a bunch of mid-range isolation, stagnant, bad fadeaway mid-range jumpers. You know what I mean? So like, and then Whiteside, I feel like we can go out and get a center that we know could play as a backup center and know that will come in with energy, compared to Whiteside, who you don't know what you're gonna get as a backup center, and he'll be completely checked out half the time he plays. So, like, I don't want to run it back with those two guys.
Bobby Marks said Whiteside's market is expected to be 6 to 8 million. So if he said I'll sign for 2 years, 12 million total, would you let him walk, or would you re-sign him?
If we couldn't get a better backup center, then I'd re-sign him.
Yeah.
But you know, he's probably not going to be a guy that signs first day.
Right.
He's probably going to be a guy.
I'm just saying, like, if it was a couple days in and he hadn't signed and we didn't have a center, and he's like, I'll sign for 2 years, 12 million. That'd be a pretty good.
Yeah, and that contract would be more tradable since it's cheap enough, and you could use it. You know, even though it's 2 years, and whoever was trading for it probably wouldn't even want Whiteside. But, yeah. So I mean, yeah, I'd be fine with that, but I'd go out and. It depends on who they would use their trade player exception on, and I asked you this question, they could hypothetically, I don't know if you did any extra research on this because I wasn't 100% sure, but they could hypothetically sign and trade for someone and use the trade player exception to absorb that player's salary in a sign and trade, somebody that they're bringing in. right? And that is like, I know we talk about like, oh, sign trades aren't realistic, but the most realistic type of sign and trade is when you don't have to trade anything back. You know what I mean? Like in terms of salary. So if a player's say it's oh, I don't know. Say for whatever reason Miami doesn't want to pay Jay Crowder $7 million. And we go out, we have this $7 million trade player exception, and we're able to, we go out and talk to Jay Crowder. Okay, we're going to offer you 3 years, $7 million a year, starting at $7 million a year, third-year team option. And if he accepts that, we could go to Miami and say, okay, we got him to accept this deal. We have a traded player exception that we could use to absorb him if you are willing to sign and trade him to us, and we'll give you back a second-round pick. It's like, okay, if he's going to leave anyway, and they're not having to take back any salary, and they get a free second-round pick, that is the most realistic type of sign and trade. And if we did that, we'd bring in Jay Crowder from free agency without using our mid-level exception at all. Right?
Yeah, I just don't see there's any way they're getting a guy like that for $7 million. But
that was just a hypothetical target. I think Jay Crowder makes more. That was just like a hypothetical first target on my mind. There might be other targets that are maybe a Harkless.
I'm waiting to see what the luxury tax and stuff, what they end up doing with it, because doing so would hard cap us, and so we might not even be.
But if we're not
able to do it,
but hard cap, saying, the hard cap is
if the luxury tax isn't left at a higher number.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, if the luxury tax is lower, because the hard cap is $6 million, $7 million past the luxury tax. So if the luxury tax is $138 million next year, the hard cap would be about $145 million. Basically, if we sign and trade for somebody to bring them in, it creates a hard cap where we can't go past $145 million. Also, if we use our full mid-level exception, our $9 million mid-level exception, it also institutes that hard cap at around $145 million. That's why there's a taxpayer mid-level exception that doesn't institute that hard cap for around $5.5 million, and there's a full mid-level exception that does institute that hard cap. That's why like teams in the luxury tax usually can't use, they can't use their full mid-level exception because they go past that hard cap, so they're not allowed to. That's the easiest way to explain it. But assuming that, that they don't, that the luxury tax and the hard cap is what it's projected to be, and we could use our TPE and our mid-level exception and stay under the luxury tax, that could be a definite option, I feel like. I feel like that's like the only type of realistic sign and trade that you can like plan for. Like we're going to go after this guy in free agency. If we can sign him to a contract that fits within the TPE, then we're going to go to his old team and say, well, you don't even have to take any salary back. We're willing to give you back cash, or we're willing to give you back a free future second round pick, and we're going to make this happen. And then we keep our mid-level exception for a second free agent. Like, that's not a bad move, I think, and like a perfect target for that $7 million might be like a Mo Harkless, because I feel like that's more his range. And I don't think New York is really looking to take him back. So if they're able to get a second round pick or even cash, like for a guy they're going to let walk anyway, I don't see why not.
Yeah, maybe. I just don't. The only holdup I have to that is like, why don't other teams do that with their trade exceptions? Then?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
You don't see it very often.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like there might be like some specific rule on that where it's like.
It's one of those rules where, I mean, it's technically a trade, so you should be able to. But yeah. I don't know. Kyle Wilson, the Lakers would never in a million years offer that, so it's not even worth discussing.
Yeah.
But they're not trading Anthony Davis. He's a free agent, actually. So.
Also, I saw him bring up a Blazers Edge article. Why would we respond to a Blazers Edge article that's not written by Nate Mann? Because Nate Mann's my guy. But everything else over there, I'm just like, eh. Let me read it, though, and that'll be an example of why I'm just like, eh. Where was it at?
What is it?
Where is it? Let me find it. I think it was a while ago, actually. Yeah, it was a while ago. Chat's kind of popping tonight. We got 36 people in here. That's dope. He said...
Najee, I'm going to have to give you a salary cap lesson someday.
What did he say?
Oh, he's just been asking, like, what's bird rights? What's the mid-level
exception?
Yeah.
That wouldn't
I'd love
be a bad
to break
video,
it all down for you
video
sometime,
series.
But, yeah.
Yeah, Kyle earlier said, Blazers have released an article today talking about a potential trade for Portland. Portland gets Gordon Hayward or Aaron Gordon in exchange for Ariza, Hood, Collins, and a protected first. Thoughts?
Yeah, this was on ESPN, not Blazers. Okay, talking about it. Yeah.
Ariza, Hood, and Collins and a first for Aaron Gordon would be the most disgusting move Neil Olshey would have ever done in his tenure as Blazers GM. I would never defend Olshey ever again if he went out and did that trade. That would be the worst trade he's ever made as a Portland Trail Blazer GM. Even without the first, that's still a terrible trade. For my Trade Talk Tuesday tomorrow, I'm going to have a video that's talking about trade targets that Blazers fans overrate. And Aaron Gordon is probably going to be the number one guy in that video that Blazer fans overrate. He's not good. He's extremely overrated. He doesn't fit what we need. He's not a three-point shooter, 30% last year. He's not a good defender. He needs to play in an up-tempo offense to be effective whatsoever. He's not efficient. Everything that I talked about, what do we need to do to contend? Move the ball better, defend better. We need three-point shooters to help Dame out and CJ out. Melo is that, so, and I'm fine in that regard because he's a decent three-point shooter. But we need three-point shooters. We need 3-and-D guys that help us move the ball. Aaron Gordon is not 3. He's not D. So why would we want him? It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand that. As far as Gordon Hayward goes, Boston ain't doing that. I don't think they're doing that trade. Gordon Hayward's intriguing, but I don't want to go all in on Gordon Hayward because that's kind of what that move would be doing.
You didn't see the trades.
What?
So Gordon Hayward makes $35 million. So it was Nurkic, Ariza.
Oh, Nurkic
Collins.
Too? Oh, that's disgusting.
We have to. We can't get to that.
Yeah.
Money. We can't get to $35 million without including
That's
Nurkic
disgusting.
and Ariza or CJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hell no. I wouldn't trade Nurkic for him straight up.
Yeah, it was bad. It was yeah, I can't remember what it was, but it was Nurkic, Ariza, Collins or Hood, and a pick or something. It's Gordon Hayward isn't even worth that. His contract is so bad that it's not. He doesn't have value in a trade like that. So
Nurkic, I would not trade Nurkic straight up for Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider it. So all that extra stuff too, yeah, that's comically bad.
And no, Harrison Barnes wouldn't solve any problems.
Why would we want Harrison Barnes for $23 million a year?
Is horrible.
He's not any better than the Ariza is. Yeah, a lot of trade targets that Blazer fans come up with.
And for D Rose does not work salary wise.
Yeah, no. Imagine the tracks Gordon could do with Dame. Yeah, I want a good basketball team, not a good rap group. That'd be cool, but just throwing out random names out there, RIP. Nice. Yeah, so that's the thing is all the trade talk, all the trade ideas I see from outside sources are just terrible. They're just garbage, and that's why I don't know. That's why we don't have as many trade ideas as we did at the deadline. At the deadline, we had more trade ideas that made sense for us and the other team. A lot of the trade ideas I see don't make sense for us. It's why would we want Terrence Ross, who's not a good defender, who's super inconsistent, at $12 million a year for the next 3 years? Why would we trade a 3-and-D player in Ariza for a guy that doesn't defend at all, who's on a worse contract? You know what I mean? And why would we give up our first-round pick to do it? It would be a Ariza and a first for Terrence Ross. That's the type of trades I see all the time. It's just It doesn't make sense, man.
Do we want Mario to play more or less this year? If Mario's playing at all, there's a serious problem.
Yeah.
I don't know. And
DeRozan?
J-Do, I hope you're kidding about Danny Moraine. Because that's not a good thing.
DeRozan, why would we want DeRozan?
Can Hazonia play less than 0?
See, people bring up DeMar DeRozan as a possibility, and it's why would we want a guy that can't shoot threes and can't defend?
And again, he makes 27 million. So you're talking about at minimum you'd have to give up Ariza, Collins, Hood,
That would
and
work.
probably like a pick or young guys to
Yeah.
do it. Like that's insane.
Yeah, for a guy
And
who's just a horrible
it doesn't
fit.
help any of our problems.
A third perimeter player next to Damon CJ who can't defend, but then also he can't play off of Damon CJ because he literally can't shoot threes. He literally doesn't shoot threes, so he can't play off of them. So he needs the ball in his hands. Why would we give up that much just to get a guy who we'd have to take the ball out of Dame's and CJ's hands and put it in his? It doesn't make sense, and we downgrade defensively. Like that, those type of ideas, I just don't understand. Like, it's like. And I'm not saying whoever brought up DeMar is saying that, it's just like a legitimate question about like the possibility, but there's a lot of Blazer fans, I feel like they just want names, you know what I mean? They have no consideration for potential fit. It's like, it's a bunch of guys that can't defend, the same people that complained about our defensive personnel and how Stotts can't do anything defensively because we don't have defensive personnel. Those same guys are like the type of guys that want to trade for a DeMar DeRozan or a Terrence Ross or an Aaron Gordon. None of those guys are good defenders at all. And it's like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's like, it just doesn't, like, the logic, I can't follow the logic of some people with like who they want to trade for in like what they complain about during the season. So like DeMar is a guy, can't shoot threes, can't defend, he doesn't fit.
Jason says Buddy Hield, that's the same thing. Like, it's not really
he can't
any
even
better
play
than
small
CJ.
forward, so he'd have to come off the bench, and he can't defend. And he wouldn't be happy coming off behind CJ. Like, I would honestly...
Playing like, 24 minutes a game.
And then what? You play Trent more at small forward? Like, Trent's better at shooting guard. We already got Trent as, like, our third guard right now, and CJ can slide over, play point guard with the bench, and we got Gary Trent Jr. next to him. Like,
and again, I think he makes, like, over 24 million, so you're talking about that same thing. You'd have to give up Ariza, Hood, and Collins, and who knows if... Sacramento probably doesn't want Ariza back anyway, so...
We cannot trade Anthony for Derrick Rose. It doesn't work salary-wise. We already said that.
I already said that.
This is just this chat and just this conversation right now is a perfect example of what I see where I'm just like...
Reese is obsessed with Vucevic right now. I don't know why, but...
Why would we... What? Reese, that's horrible. Why would we want to play
He keeps saying he's joking or psyched, but he's been saying it, like, for several days now.
Oh, my goodness, bro. People will, like, seriously suggest that, like, go out and get Gallo and Vucevic. It's like, do we want to have the worst defense in NBA history? Gallo at the 3 and Vucevic at the 4? That would be tragic.
Dionysus is trying to trigger me.
Oh, with the sided trade wide side for Porter Jr.? Yeah, I hope he's joking. I think he's joking. He knows us well enough. Who do you see us trading for? I don't really see any like target where I'm like, oh yeah, we're probably going to trade for him. I could definitely see us trading for Bielitsa. I could see us maybe making a move for Kelly Oubre if he becomes available. But I don't know. As far as anybody else, I just don't see it. Reese, why would we... Reese, I hope you're trolling. All O, no D.
No, it's not working. I'm not going to take the bait, Dionysus. I don't. If that was a serious question though, like, so the Bulls would have to pay, I think, somewhere around 23 or 24 million just to make the trade work for 3 years. So like they'd have to give Whiteside a 3-year, like 70 some million.
And they'd have to do that like on their own accord. You know what I mean? Because we can't say, hey, you should sign him to this so we could trade for your guy. And like it doesn't work like that. So they're just gonna have to decide. You know what would help our rebuilding team? Even though we got a good young center in Wendell Carter, we should go sign Hassan Whiteside for 3 years for $23 million a year, just so we could trade Otto Porter Jr. for a second-round pick. Like. People really be suggesting that type of stuff, and it's the worst. The second and third year can be a team option, but do you think Chicago like they ain't gonna go out and offer Whiteside
minimum contract, let alone paying him $27 million this year?
Yep, and that would also like push us up against the luxury tax too. Like we'd probably be in the luxury tax. Tim Hardaway can't defend and makes $20 million, so I don't see why
shooting guard who can't really play small forward too.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Green or Markieff Morris for the biannual exception. I don't see why we'd need to use the biannual exception, though. I don't want those guys because we can get better options with the mid-level exception or potentially the TPE.
So those are two guys I'd rather have Melo over.
Yeah. But, like, I would rather have Harkless than Melo.
Yeah, I probably would, too.
Because he fits what we need.
I just don't think they're...
People like the flashy name, the wholesome redemption story, the aged grizzled vet who has bought into being a role player and, but still has flashes of the Hall of Fame player he used to be, and it's Carmelo Anthony, one of the most famous names in the game. Like, people get too sucked up in that, you know what I mean? If it wasn't Carmelo and it was some random player that came in and played how Carmelo played, like, people wouldn't be high on him right now, I don't think. It'd be more about, like, the attitude towards Whiteside. Is honestly what I believe. The thing is, Whiteside had a better season than Melo. Like, at least statistically, he had a far better season than Melo. In terms of impact, like, he had at least as good of a season as Melo. Melo from January to March was the worst defender on our team. People forget that. He was the worst defender on our team from January to March. He was worse than CJ.
I disagree. I had Melo stands telling me that he was the defensive MVP of our team was by far our defensive anchor and best player.
Yeah, we have to deal with two type of Melo stands, the LaMelo fans and the Carmelo fans, because we got LaMelo fans like blowing up our draft profile video on LaMelo, just giving us a bunch of shit right
Let's get to that in a minute.
But
Chief ends a Melo stand, but if in case you weren't paying attention, Chief, and he said from January to March, not bubble games. He did not say that he was terrible in the bubble games defensively. So.
Melo was not efficient this year. He was not efficient. 52% true shooting percentage. That's below average efficiency, especially for a guy who takes as many shots as Melo does. He stagnates our offense. He doesn't help our defense. He was okay defensively in the bubble. I don't expect that to continue. Like, it's a small sample size compared to the rest of his career. Like, why is, like, a few games in the bubble, like, why are people going to put more stock in that than what they've seen out of Melo for years? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, he's going to slow down even more because he's up there in age in his late 30s. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But people love there's people out there, the Melo fans will try and justify their want for Melo in any way possible. It'll be like, he helped us when it counted, or he hit clutch shots, or, he stepped up when we needed him. And it'll just be like narratives like that just don't have like a ton of substance to them, I don't think. Like, go out and get a guy who will defend every game, who will hit some shots, and who will be a team player on offense, move off the ball, and won't stagnate us. That's what we need, A guy like Harkless, his off-ball movement was underrated, all right? You got Nurkic as a center. We need to tap into his playmaking more. Go out and get a guy who, instead of just, like, standing in the low post and, Nurkic is just going to enter the ball to Melo and have him face up in ISO and Melo's just going to go one-on-one. I'd rather have a guy that's, like, moving off the ball, who's a lob target, who plays defense, who can hit some threes. Like, I'd rather have a Harkless type playing off that. That's what we need, And like... I would prefer to have a better shooter than Harkless, but, like, we need a certain type of player. Melo isn't it, and people get too sucked up in the whole, like, redemption story Carmelo Anthony stuff. That's just my opinion. I don't want him back.
I still would be fine with him coming back if it's a bench role and he's, like, he accepts that, and I think it's helpful to have a legit bench scorer, even if it's inefficient, but...
If we have a bench lineup that has CJ, Trent, and Hood as our perimeter players, I feel like we don't need like an isolation one-on-one like guy that off the bench.
You're forgetting who our coach is. In the playoffs, we definitely need as many ISO scorers as possible.
Well, that's no, we need less so we can get away from it, even though Stotts is coach. You know what I mean? Like,
as long as Dame is future on the team, I don't see it.
I mean, when we had like Lehman and Harkless on the team, we moved a little bit more. At least those guys moved, and Nurkic fed him more, and we utilized Nurkic more as a passer. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think that we need to like cater to Stotts' deficiencies by getting him the type of players that
I agree with that.
It's go just, along with, you know. So that's the thing is like we can go out and get like a Harkless type. I'd rather have Harkless as a better four, and then we can use, you know, maybe we can use our trade player exception to sign trade for him, and then we'd have our full mid-level exception to use on a backup center. Like, we need like a good balance in our bench unit, I feel like, between offense and defense. I feel like we got the offense with CJ, Trent, and Hood, and if we could sign like a backup center like an Aaron Baines or somebody, like offensively, I think that's a really good bench lineup. We just need the defense to go with that.
One thing we haven't really talked about is with the shorter offseason, though, I think a lot of teams are going to have to rely on continuity, and I think the teams that do have continuity will be at an advantage at least early on in the season. That was another reason why that GM said he didn't want cap space, was because he was afraid to like give his coach a bunch of new players and have to implement new system and stuff with such a short off season. So
continuity is overrated when it comes to a Terry Stotts coach team. You look at how good Ariza played when he came in because he knew how to play basketball the right way. You know what I mean?
Well,
and then
I somewhat agree with that, but there is something about the guys already knowing how to play together.
Yeah. But I mean, like, our system is not a hard system to pick up, I don't think. It's not. It's so much freelance. And people act like our system's so complicated offensively. It's really not. We literally are like last in the league in terms of assists. We run more pick and roll and isolation than anybody. Anybody can come in and run that stuff. And defensively, we only run one scheme. You know what I mean? So, like, I feel like in terms of, like, our roster, I'm not trying to say continuity doesn't matter at all, but I feel like in terms of us, like, it matters less than other teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, Dame being familiar with players and knowing where they're at and stuff like that, that does have some weight.
Yeah, but we got to set ourselves up for the end of the season, not the start. Obviously, we don't want to drop games because of that, but, like, if we get more talented players, we're going to be winning more games at the start, in my opinion. So, I don't know. I just don't. I don't want those guys back, man. I want better replacements. If we could just go and get, like, a Harkless and a Favors or something like that, just two random examples. Much rather have that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of fine either way.
I would prefer Bielitsa and somebody else in like a good defensive center in free agency. That's like my dream. Because you would have the best offensive bench in the league if you had Bielitsa. No matter who the center was, I think you would. If you had CJ, if the bench unit was CJ, Trent, Hood, Bielitsa, like, that's lethal. That is lethal. The shooting, the shot creation, that's lethal. We would, like, bro, how nice would it be for Dame to come out of the game and for bench units for both teams to come in and us feel like we're just as good of a spot as when we had Dame in? You know, Dame comes out again, it's like, oh, now we got our bench unit, and our bench unit is nice, and we're going to build a lead here for Dame with him off the floor because we have such a good bench unit and it's better than the other teams. I've never had that feeling. That would be amazing. That would be amazing, bro. Like, I wouldn't have that confidence if we had, like, Melo and Whiteside, because it'd be like, oh, hopefully we get good Melo today because you know he's going to shoot 10 shots and he might go 1 for 10. And, oh, hopefully Whiteside, you know, is in a good mood today and, you know, plays with some energy. You know, he might be a ghost out there, though. Like, I want to have confidence in the bench unit.
Alvaro, the only way to get Kelly Olynyk as backup center is pretty much trading Ariza for him, and so that means we're trading our starting small forward for a backup center. I don't know if that's the best play.
I would consider it if we could get their 20th pick, and then we need to use free agency to replace Ariza in the starting lineup. So maybe go out and get I don't really like Jay Crowder as much as Ariza. I don't even like Harkless as much as Ariza, but like if we went out and got Harkless, I think we'd be fine. And Harkless is a guy who's played with this team, so like the whole continuity thing, like he's actually familiar with these guys. So like if we could get the 20th, because straight up I don't think it's worth it. If we could do Ariza for Olynyk in the 20th pick, and then we could sign Harkless in free agency to replace Ariza, I'd probably be down with that. And then maybe try and use 16 and 20 to trade up and take a guy who's falling, like trade up to maybe, I don't know, 12, and maybe like a Halliburton falls. That I'd be down for that. It would basically guarantee us one of Sadiq Bey, Aaron Nesmith, and Patrick Williams if we were at 12. So we take one of those guys, and they could maybe be a long-term replacement for Ariza. I don't know. Olynyk's interesting, though. I like Olynyk.
Yeah. Bro. I just don't know if I trade Ariza for him.
Yeah. No, I 100% get that. Because it's dependent on, like, who we replaced Ariza with, too. But, like, our bench unit, if we had Bjelica and Olynyk, would that be the best shooting bench in NBA history? Our bench unit, our 6th through 9th guys would be Gary Trent Jr., Rodney Hood, Bjelica, and Kelly Olynyk. All those guys shot over 40% from 3 last year. Like, that might be the best shooting bench in NBA history. You couldn't, like, Stotts wouldn't have the excuse, the guys just didn't make shots. Like, it's either your offense or they're going to make shots. So... Anyway, I just want a good bench next season. We are in a great position to have a really good bench next season. We already have legit 6th and 7th guys. I mean, like, Hood's return is up in the air, but like if he's not able to return for a month or two, I feel like Nas could slot in there and be serviceable. Especially considering how hard he works. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? We'll get Hood back later in the season. I expect him to be fine. He's not really an athleticism-based player. He's a shooter. Doesn't even like rely on quickness to really get to his spots inside the arc either. So yeah, I mean, like, we already have a good 6th and 7th men in Trent and Hood, and we have full mid-level exception to add a good 8th man as a big, and we have a trade player exception. Like, I like it, and we have the 16th pick. Like, I'm more confident going into this offseason than I have been in any offseason the past like 4 years. I'm not necessarily confident that O'Shea will change anything, but I'm more confident in like the situation, the position we're in.
Yeah. So, well, it's much better than already being in the luxury tax like at the start of free agency.
Yeah, because you're paying Evan Turner $18 million a year, and you have Myers and Leonard making 10. Yeah. So it's kind of weird to like actually like, oh, I actually like our position, even though we don't really have like many trade avenues as years past.
Blazer Tay 2K asked, could our pick play this year if we got the right guy? So my feelings on that is, one is we should be in a position where we're deep enough not to have to rely on a rookie this year. But if a rookie was to play, he would either have to be just a dominant defensive player that helps us in defensive situations where we need stops and stuff like that, or a lights-out three-point shooter who comes in and immediately starts hitting threes at an acceptable clip to warrant playing time. So we saw Little last year get an opportunity to start when Zach went down for a few games. He actually played pretty well defensively, I thought, but his problem in Stott's offense is he wasn't hitting his three-point shot. So he didn't get an opportunity much past that to play his rookie year. If he would have came in, and let's say that's like Sadiq Bey or Aaron Nesmith, and they're shooting like 40% from three, then like Gary Trent did in his second year, all of a sudden I think he would find a way to get some minutes to hit some threes in a game. But my guess is no, that a rookie wouldn't really be playing this year unless like Hood's not available and Little struggles or something like that. They might get him a shot, but yeah.
I'd say if healthy, I don't see anybody we could take at 16 that'd play right away.
Yeah.
If healthy, if we like could somehow get James Wiseman, he could potentially win out the backup center spot. If we
Right.
got like an Obi Toppin, he could potentially win
Or
out the
Conley
backup
or
power
something,
forward.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but like those guys are top. Those guys are top
Yeah.
5-6 picks. So
I guess that's true. If we did take a big, there's probably more of a path to playing time because Collins and Nurk are both somewhat, injury risks and stuff like that. So you never know if they could get an opportunity to play like Scal did almost all last year before he got hurt too. But yeah, basically you have to look at it like Trent last year. Trent's rookie year couldn't hit a 3-pointer, so he didn't play much. Yeah, I don't think he played much at all. So last year he comes in, gets an opportunity, starts hitting this 3-point shot, and all of a sudden he's getting minutes towards the end of the season in the playoffs and all that stuff. So it's pretty much dependent on your shooting in this offense and your defense. And I'm hoping the Blazers pick a guy who can provide that. I just don't know if it'll be this season.
Dionysus is talking about Evan Turner versus Rodney Hood, saying Hood got no back to the basket game like Turner. Well, Turner's back to the basket game was overrated. He wasn't efficient out of it, and why would we want ISO Evan Turner in the post? You know what I mean? Like, especially if we have one to Damon CJ on the floor. Like, I hate it every time Turner posted up. But the thing is, Hood has a little bit of a post-up game. He can hit that turnaround jumper out of the post. Like, he likes that shot. I definitely would rather have Hood than Turner. A million times over a million, even after the injury. So, Anime Jake says, I'm willing to bet Hood has a higher percentage shooting rate in the post with Portland than Turner. I honestly would I feel like that might be the case too. It'd be interesting to see that. But
I don't know if you saw, just kind of a change of topic, but Trevin, well, first of all, he posted some stuff on the Vucevic versus Nurkic thing he asked about earlier, and I thought he did a really good job explaining why he would choose Nurkic. But second of all, he posted some stats about he found some box out per game stats.
Really?
And
how bad was this on?
I don't want to like misquote it, but I'm pretty sure he said Hassan was 61st in the league in box outs per game.
61st,
which is terrible considering the minutes he played and his role and how many rebounds he got per game.
Bro, if you're, let me look up his stats. Let me look Whiteside stats. If you're getting, let me see. If you're getting 13.5 rebounds per game, you should not be 61st in terms of box outs per game. Yeah. That goes to show, like, he's stealing rebounds. He's not boxing guys out. He's just padding his rebound stats. Yeah, so he is an overrated rebounder. I honestly don't think he's a good rebounder. He puts up good rebounding stats, but there's a difference between putting up good rebounding stats and being a good rebounder.
Like Nurk, who is 5th on that list. I know he wouldn't qualify because he didn't play enough games, but he was 5th in the games he did play.
It was a problem all season with Whiteside on the court was how many offensive rebounds we were giving up.
And Zach was 11th in the entire league in box outs per game. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've talked about a ton when people are like, oh, Zach averages like 6 and 4. He sucks. He's a setter or whatever. Like, okay, you have to look at rebounding numbers as a team while they're on the floor. So Zach was 11th in the league in, once again, it's a small sample size because he didn't play a lot of games, but it's per game, so it doesn't really matter how long he played or whatever. But in the games he did play, he boxed out a ton. So that means he's not getting rebounds, but he's at least sealing his man from getting a rebound in most cases. Mm-hmm. And that's really important. And that's why we lost several games to crappy teams like the Cleveland game where we couldn't box out Tristan Thompson. And
granted, we didn't have Whiteside for that game, but
yeah, I know. I'm just giving an example of a game where we had several cases where we didn't have Nurk or Zach, and the other 5 players just turn around and watch the rebound come off, and one player outworks 5 Blazers to the rebound. And
see, box outs are like a thing that nobody cares about. You know, talking about right now, like there's so many people out there that like don't care about box outs per game or anything. They don't care about box outs now. They don't care about box outs until somebody doesn't do it, and then when somebody doesn't do it, it's annoying as hell. That just shows like it's underrated, like in terms of just casual conversation. Box outs per game are as indicative of, maybe even more indicative of a good rebounder, and it like in terms of a player that helps the team rebound, it might be more indicative than rebounds per game. You know, I would rather have a player who's just like hypothetically speaking, I'd rather have a player who's 5th in box outs per game and like 61st in rebounds than 61st in box outs per game and 5th in rebounds.
Right.
Because I feel like that second player, the team isn't going to rebound as well with them on the floor.
I don't know if you heard this one or if this was like an older thing, but I used to be taught like if the shot goes up and everyone boxes out their man and the ball bounces to the floor, like that shows that you're a good rebounding team. Like you stopped anyone from the other team from even getting the ball before it hit the floor. Yeah. I mean, obviously you want to grab the ball, but like they're not going to get many rebounds if you're stopping them from even getting the ball before it hits the floor.
Also, here's the thing that happened all season. The NBA, tons of threes, right? So tons of long rebounds. The thing is, if you just stand there, ball's going over your head. If you step into the offensive player, you step away from the rim into the offensive player to box out, you have a better chance of getting long rebounds. So, like, that's the thing is so much all season, like, Whiteside, instead of stepping back into his man boxing out where the ball would have came right into him, he, like, walks straight to the rim and, like, straight under the rim, and then the ball goes over his head. And somebody will rebound it, and then Hassan will block his shot, making his block numbers look good, but he shouldn't have had to block that shot. It should have been our ball, you know what I mean? So it's like, he'll block the shot, then he'll get a rebound, but, like, I'd rather have a center that boxes out, helps his team get a rebound, even if he doesn't get it, and we go back down the floor the other way. That's why, like, his statistical production is overrated in terms of, leading the league in blocks per game and getting 13.5 rebounds per game. It's stats don't tell the whole story, and there's a lot of context matters with a guy like Whiteside, you know? It doesn't tell the full story with him, so, yeah, he's and he's like the type of guy to care about his stats, too. Yeah. To like check the box score immediately after the game to see what he did. Like he's one of those guys. So yeah, boxing out is underrated. That's interesting. See, but we were telling you guys that all season that Hassan doesn't box out. We were telling you guys that all season. Like that his rebounding numbers were overrated because he doesn't box out and the team's struggling in terms of rebounding the ball, and it's due in part to Hassan not boxing out. So that just kind of confirms what we were saying all season long. Mm-hmm. Yes, I would take Middleton for CJ. Straight up, hell yeah. That's like the one CJ.
That's one of the few somewhat realistic that could improve like a 1-for-1 trade when you talk about just getting a better, bigger wing. That's one of the few that actually makes sense.
And the thing is, like, they want to move on from Bledsoe, right? Too. You could play CJ as like the point guard because Giannis can be like the point forward, so CJ wouldn't have to like bring the ball up all the time. You know what I mean? He could, but like, and defensively, CJ could. Maybe you pair a shooting guard next to him, like a Wesley Matthews, and guard the best guard, and you can offset like CJ's defense. Like CJ's fit on that team and kind of what they need makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I would consider it if I was Milwaukee, if I was getting back, like, the 16th pick and maybe a future first or something like that. And I would consider that if I was Portland because Milton is just an all-around better fit and would make us better defensively. And, yeah, so, I mean, that's, like, the one CJ trade that I, like, am intrigued in. Everything else, like, for Aaron Gordon, for Tobias Harris, like, all that stuff is just, like, either a downgrade or a lateral move that doesn't make sense. I don't want to make a lateral move if I'm trading CJ. I want to get a player who's either a better talent or a better fit. Mm-hmm. And, like, Middleton's, like, the only guy that's been suggested that fills even one of those boxes. And, honestly, Middleton fills both those boxes. So, I would love that. And then you go out and you get, you go out and get, you sign a Maurice Harkless or somebody like that. And then you have your starting lineup 2 through 4, all switch ball, all versatile defenders. You got Middleton at the 2, Ariza at the 3, like a Harkless type, a Crowder, whoever at the 4. All those guys can switch.
And much like Steph Curry, it makes Dame a much better defender when he's not having to exert as much energy or having to guard as good of a guy as he normally would have to.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you could put Middleton on the point guard. Middleton will do fine. You could put Harkless on the point guard. You could put Ariza on the point guard, and you could hide Dame on the shooting guard. Or if it's a small team, maybe hide Dame on the small forward if he's not good, like a Torrey Craig or like a Eric Gordon or whatever. And you could put Middleton and a Harkless or Middleton and Ariza on a Westbrook and Harden. You know what I mean? Like defensively, we'd be set up like in a lot better position, and Middleton's more efficient, better playing off the ball than on, and a little bit better of a playmaker though with the ball in his hands in terms of like making plays for others. I think he's a little bit better passer than CJ. He has better passing numbers than CJ, so he just kind of disappears in the playoffs. But I think I would 100% do that trade, especially if we could like keep assets to maybe like try and get another like high tier player at. Because here's the thing, bro. If we trade for Middleton could also play the 3. So like, if like a Bradley Beal became available, then you're talking about potentially, okay, maybe if we still had enough assets after a Middleton trade, maybe our young players and picks can like get us in the conversation for Beal, and you could have Dame, Beal, Middleton, right? You can't do Dame, Beal, CJ. You can't do Dame, CJ, Beal. Like, Beal's too small to play the 3. CJ's too small to play the 3. Middleton can play the 3. So then you would open up like your all-in moves. You would open up more possibilities because you could go trade for a 2 or a 3 or a 4 instead of just only looking at 3 and 4, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, Dame, Beal, Middleton, Collins, Nurkic is contending, I think. That team's doing.
Yeah, I just don't know if we'd have the assets to get.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, that's like way down the road. I just like the way it sets up the team.
Maybe Buddy Hield then comes into play or someone like that.
Yeah. Anyway, this stream's been popping. We got 46 people in here. That's crazy. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Let's hit 400 subs on our streaming channel over here. We will be streaming on Thursday, and we're willing to take more of your questions, and we're getting close to draft. Should have, hopefully, another draft profile or 2 out before then.
That LaMelo one, man.
Yeah,
it's almost got 1,000 views, but
a lot of hate on it. I knew that was going to happen, though. I wasn't surprised, man. You got a lot of LaMelo stands, so we're getting a lot of hate over there. So go check out our LaMelo draft profile over on NBA Uprise and subscribe to NBA Uprise if you haven't done so, because we're dropping draft profiles over on that channel, and we've been getting a lot of hate on our LaMelo draft profile, so we need the army, we need the Uprise gang to go and back us up. Because the like to dislike ratio, it's like 30 to 15 or something. So we need all our OGs to back us up. But yeah, I should have a trade talk video tomorrow. Maybe Wednesday. Stuff's just kind of in flux and hectic right now and whatnot. So we'll see what happens the rest of this week in terms of content. You should get a few different things, and then Thursday we'll talk more off-season because draft is in, 3 weeks?
3 weeks and 2 days, I think. Is it a Thursday?
23 days. Yeah, so, I mean, draft is soon, man. Draft is soon, so, yeah, it's a fun time of year. And the thing is, we don't have that dead period after free agency if things happen how they seem like they're going to happen. You know, it's literally going to be...
It's on a Wednesday, yeah.
Bro, it's literally going to be... If they start, when they're talking about start, it's literally going to be draft, free agency, training camp, season. With no break. So, I mean, this is like these next 3 weeks, and we're going to, like, I'm, been grinding on draft content. I'm kind of behind, but I have portions of a lot of different draft profiles done. I've kind of haven't been doing it one at a time. I've been, like, doing different sections of videos, so... Like, we're grinding on the draft content, and we'll have some free agency content and whatnot, so, like... There's no off season for us, but I guess this is like the only lull from now until the draft is the only lull because it's gonna go draft, free agency, training camp, season, and then Olympics, and then your next lull will be season, August, late August to mid October. So things are hectic, so it's fun. Yeah, nonstop basketball, man. So anyway. I'm going to tune out here. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for the support on the stream. If you haven't subscribed to this live streaming channel, as I said, I want to reach 400 because I've been hovering right around there. I would be Leangelo 100%, Eric. Don't cap. But yeah, so subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to NBA Uprise. I'm not sure if there's a link in the description, but... should be able to go to the main Blazers Uprise channel, and I have a playlist right at the top of that channel page with our draft profiles from both channels, because I've been dropping them on both channels. Anyway, nothing else left to plug, so I will catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time. Well, you want to say something before we're out?
Well, just in case we don't get enough people, come play Among Us if you want.
Yep. Join our Among Us Discord if y'all want to play. If not, we'll catch you guys next time. As always, peace out. Go.